Hi, my name is Roger Merchant. I'm with Cortex Power and Energy, and today we're going to be discussing vintage automobiles and what it took basically to take them out and drive with them. Gladys is a 1913 Hupmobile Model 32 touring car. She is currently about 103 years old, and we're going to go through the process of basically starting the car and getting ready to go for a drive. In order to start the car, the first thing we have to do is set the spark. That's basically the ignition. We're going to be very careful on how that's done so we don't end up breaking our arm. So what we do is we take the spark lever and we set it to the retard position, and on this particular car we set it about dead center here. And that retards the spark, so now it's safe to attempt to start the car. This car does not have an electric starting system. It has a hand crank. Without further ado, we'll turn on the gas. So now we got gas coming down into the carburetor. To start the car, we have to flood the carburetor. When this little pin gets kind of heavy to pull up, we know that the gas reservoir has got gas in it, and we have a little bit running out. That means it's ready. The proper method of hand cranking an automobile, you don't grab the crank like this. If you grab like you're grabbing something, that's a good way to break your hand. What you do is you cup your thumb underneath the crank, and you push it. You push the crank in, and you lift up. Now the car is running. Now we've been. See how the engine kind of picked up. The transmission is a 3-speed, 3-gear with reverse, and this is the shifter. Straight up is first, then we go over to here and second, and then high gear, which is third, is here. And if we want to go in reverse, it's straight back. The emergency brake is more than just simply a parking brake, or in case the main brakes fail, it actually is the main brake. The pedals down here is the brake. This is your accelerator pedal, which is in the middle, and then your clutch is over here. To brake the car, to bring it to a stop, you step on the brake pedal, but at the same time you grab the emergency brake and pull it back. The vehicle only has 2-wheel brakes, and they're in the back, and they're pretty much useless after 30 mile an hour. So too much after that, it's like, whoa. To shut the car off, we showed how to start it. There's a little button here that you just simply step on with your foot, and that is the kill switch. Then over here, I don't know if you can see it, is the car's horn. And that theoretically lets people know, get out of the way. Then over here is the speedometer and tripometer. I don't know if you can zoom in on this. This is the car's actual original mileage. For 103 years old, just a moment here, this car shows 10,838 miles. Those are the original miles to the car. Considering that the type of road conditions that this car seen in its heyday, well, there wasn't any roads. There were trails. There were suggestions of where to drive. Hupmobile first started out in about 1909, and it lasted from 1909 until it went out of business in about 1940. What is interesting is that the first Greyhound bus was a 19 1913 or 1914 Hupmobile, basically the same model as this. That is how Greyhound first got started. As a Hupmobile dealer, started giving people rides in the car, and then he started charging for it, and people were paying him money, and it eventually became Greyhound Bus Line. Another interesting thing is Hupmobile was the first automobile to circumnavigate the world. It was a Hupmobile that literally drove around the world, and that was a 1911 Hupmobile. Some people may kind of wonder what's the steering wheel on the right-hand side and not on the left. Well, in those days, even though it was an American car, most cars had their steering wheel on the right side, which is very similar to the English. The last year that Hupmobile had right-hand steering was 1914, and then in 1915, the steering wheel was put over on the left side, which now all modern cars in the U.S. are, left-hand steering. It sometimes is a little bit confusing to people when I give hand signals which way I'm turning, because it's kind of somewhat opposite of what normal hand signals are. But most people today don't even know what hand signals are because, well, we have turn signals. Well, not on this fine beast. That wasn't going to come about until probably at least another 20 years before people started thinking about showing people where you wanted to turn. The crankcase, bell housing, and the transmission, all one piece, is a solid one-piece aluminum casting. A lot of these cars did survive up until World War II. They were very well-built little cars, and but unfortunately, a lot of them gave their life for the war effort because there was so much aluminum and so much usable metals inside the vehicle. They were basically junked for their metal. Like I said, most of it was aluminum. Aluminum is, of course, used extensively for aircraft. Other little thing here, we can show the ignition. This is your ignition system. It's called a magneto. It generates a high tension spark that supplies the spark to the spark plugs. There's no coil, and the distributor is part of the magneto, so it generates the high tension spark, and then sends it down the spark plug cables to the spark plug at the right moment. Another unique aspect of this car is the fact that it doesn't have a water pump. They didn't think it was important to put one on. So basically how the car theoretically keeps cool is that water in the engine gets hot and it circulates up through the radiator and then down the radiator and back into the lower part of the block. Very similar to how a coffee pot works. That's fine if you want to brew coffee, but personally I'd kind of like to keep my engine cool. The idea behind what's called Thermo-syphon cooling is that it gets boiling hot. That's not good for an engine. The next model after the Model 32 had a water pump. I just wish they would have thought it was important enough to put it on this one, which limits the amount of driving that you can safely do with her. Because let's face it, she's 103 years old. That is really old metal, and it wouldn't take much to crack a block. So you have to be kind of careful not to overheat the old girl. But she'll pretty well let you know when she's ready to take a break. We're going to go through the basic procedure of getting a Brasserie automobile ready to go driving at night. This being a 1913 model, has acetylene headlamps, not electric headlights. So we start by opening up the buckets, and that's what they call them. And there's several reasons for doing that. One thing, we got to be very careful that we don't have a flame out. You don't want to build up of acetylene gas in these when you go to light them, or it could blow up. So we'll open it up a crack. This is the acetylene tank. There we go. And then we close the lenses. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to light the side lamps, even though they're not very bright. And then of course you don't dare forget your tail lamp. That way people know that you're there. And we want it kind of fairly bright so that way people can see you. The car is now ready to be driven at night. So again, we make sure our spark is setting is correct, which it is. And we will turn the gas back on. Put the gas back up into the carburetor. There we go. And we are running.